Everything's fine. Nice. Alrighty, so hello everybody. Welcome to No Kid Hungry, or welcome back to No Kid Hungry. I am the thebpg13, also known as Viper to my regular viewers. Welcome to Toca 2 Touring Cars. Now this is the PC version of the game, released back in 1998, and followed the 1998 British Touring Car season. I'll get into a bit more about the season as a whole and things like that as we go, a bit more about the game as the run persists, and goes from start to finish. Now it's worth noting, so this is the Challenge Novice, so it's 4 races, one at Snetterton, one at Silverstone, one at Brands Hatch, and finally one at Donington. The idea of Challenge Mode is basically there's you and 7 other cars, all on track at the same time, usually one of each touring car. There's 8 altogether in the game. So whichever one you pick, obviously the other 7 will be around you. And the idea is to get across the checkpoints and win the races. Each race is 2 laps each. This one's going to be quite short, I'm not going to lie, so I'm going to be more or less explain a bit more about the season, drivers, and things like that as well. Just to kind of bring you guys up to scratch. Other thing as well worth mentioning, so the game runs in 4x3, the little window you can see, top left corner. That's just how the game is when it comes to capturing it. It's a bit of a pain to capture. But when we get into the actual game, it'll be full 16:9, so don't fret. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to be choosing the Honda Accord for this one. There's no particular reason why, other than just felt like using a different car. And yeah, if we're ready on the timer, I'll give you guys a countdown. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so first race is Snetterton. Now it is worth noting that this is a speed run, so we are going to be cutting corners straight away. So obviously we're going to use the Honda Accord for this one. So the cars that are in question for this game as a whole, so there is 16 drivers over the course of, I believe it's a 24 round calendar. So each race meeting consists of 2 races, a sprint race and a feature race. Now the sprint race was usually like between 10 and 15 laps depending. And then the feature race was around, I think, 20 to 30 laps, or maybe 40 laps, depending on the circuit. So they started out at... so the first round was at Thruxton, so that's where they started out. Then it moved on to Silverstone, Brands Hatch Indy. I think then it was, I want to say, Alton Park, Knockhill, and also Donington. So they made a trip to Donington twice. But yeah, so we had 16 drivers altogether. So we had driving the Honda Accord, we had James Thompson and Peter Cox. For Audi, so the Audi A4 Quattro that was driven that year, that was driven by John Bincliffe, and I believe it was, I can't think off the top of my head who the hell drove the other one. Frank Beeler drove it in 96 and 97. Yeah, he drove it in 98 actually. Can't remember. I do apologise. Vauxhall Veterans was John Cleland and Derek Warwick, who is now a FIA steward. So for those that follow Formula 1 and racing as a whole, that's who he is. He's one of the stewards that appoints like the penalties and infringes the rules at some race events. For the Volvo team, there was Gianni Morbidelli, another ex-Formula 1 driver, and Rickard Rydell, who would actually go on to become the 1998 British Touring Car Champion. Also, that is the first race done at Snetterton, as you can see. So we get points for this, by the way. And then after every race is finished, it'll ask us to view a replay. We'll just say, nah, we don't want to do that. So yeah, as I was saying, so we have the Volvo S40 that was driven by Rickard Rydell, who was the 1998 champion, along with Gianni Morbidelli. The Ford Mondeo, which was driven by Craig Baird and Will Hoy. The Nissan Primera GT, my personal favourite car of 1998, and British Touring Cars as a whole, was driven by David Leslie and Anthony Reid. We had the Peugeot 406 driven by Tim Harvey and Paul Radicic. And finally, we had the Renault Laguna driven by Jason Plato, and Alan Menu. So, yeah, quite a few interesting names there. Most of the touring car paddock is still alive. They're still alive and well and going, and some of them are even still racing. And Jason Plato, in particular, is one very famous name when it comes to the British touring cars. It's his last season this year, but he's been driving in the British touring car since 1997. So the year before this came out, he made his debut with Williams Renault back in 1997, and has been driving pretty much every year, bar a couple of years. He has taken a few years out of the sport, so he's not been driven all the way from 1997 to this year. He has had like a year or two out every now and again. So he has driven for, I'd still say he's driven for nearly 20 years, if not more, or 20 seasons. It's also worth noting as well that because this is a 1998 game, a lot of the circuits have changed slightly. So this remains to be one of the most popular British touring car games ever created, as it stands right now. And for those that don't know, the Grid series, or what is now formerly known as Grid, is actually this series but carried on in a new direction. So for those that don't know either, the Colin McRae Rally series, for example, is carried on now under the Dirt franchise. It's basically the same with this. It started as Toca touring cars, then it went to Toca Race Driver, then it was, which had 3 games, Toca Race Driver 1, 2 and 3, and then it was Grid. And Grid, obviously, as we know, as recently as far as I think it was this year, released a 4th Grid game, which was, 5th Grid game, which was obviously Grid Legends. But yeah, this is where the actual game series carries on from over the years. So the more you know, I guess. Also, that is Silverstone, all done and dusted. Cracking stuff. It's also worth noting as well that the Silverstone track that we've just done, so that was using the 1998 layout. Since 1998, Silverstone has gone under a lot of changes. In particular, the bridge that we went under and then turned right. Yeah, that was also another thing. That corner has been completely removed from the circuit. Although, if you go to the track today, you can still walk on it. So you can still walk on the classic track, which is amazing. Now, it's worth noting a couple of things as well. So in this particular game, for those that don't know as well, so the game actually behaves differently depending on the frame rate. It's like, other PC games that are out there. That are out there, and you're like, okay, so what do you mean? So basically, if you played this game at higher than 60 frames per second, if a car goes over a curb, as you saw me just do, unfortunately what happens is the car just gets stuck in the air. It's really strange. I don't know why, but yeah, it's very, very strange. If you play it at 60 FPS, the game feels very nice and runs very smoothly. However, the car tends to get spun around a lot easier on curbs. However, if you play it at 30 FPS, the cars seem to be more grippy. But that's not the only thing either. You may notice when we start the race that we're often pulling away with leaving wheel spin, so leaving a burnout as we leave the line. Yeah, that's not visible on the game when you're playing at 60 frames per second or higher. Or, sorry, higher than 30 frames per second, should I say. Also, that's Brands Hatch. So we're all done and dusted on that one. It's great stuff. So you have, in this game as well, there is also, before I forget it, there is also a weird physic at the start here, which we often steer left and right a bit frantically to try and get the car to get out of its wheel spin to get a good start. But it's also worth noting that this game does have, unsurprisingly, this game does have a main championship, which follows the 1998 season. So you can actually drive the 1998 season in one of these cars, which is amazing, and it's still brilliant now. And thanks to Silent Patch, or Silent, he made this game able to run in 1080, which is what you're seeing right now, which is fantastic. So yeah, there you go. The more you know. Also, this game does have several camera views. I have an onboard cockpit, as you can see. So we have a cockpit view, and even for 1998, this game still looks fantastic. You've got like traditional cockpit view, obviously you've got a bonnet cam. And obviously you've got like what I would call like a driver TV camera, driver cockpit camera. Also, what we're going to do is we are going to cut across the grass here. There. So obviously we do that for speed purposes, of course. So I always used to pick the Honda record, by the way, and I used to do championships. I don't know why, I always used to pick it. Then I started picking the Nissan Primera, and that quickly became my favourite. But yeah, we ended up, what was it? We ended up doing, like, there was a racing league at some point that me and a few friends did, which was really fun. So that was close. Very nice. So yeah, this game, you can still play it online with friends if you have, like, Hamachi and things like that, which is really cool. There is a support car championship mode that you can play. So in that, you've got several cars, including the Ford Fiesta, the Formula Fords, the Lister Storm, Jaguar XJ220, a TVR Speed 12, I think it was known at the time. There's some Scorpion thing in there, which is like a three-wheeler car, which is amazing. But yeah, so you have like variety of game modes. There's also a test track as well. Also not bad. I kind of spun myself better, spun myself around, which is good. Also, time's coming up, and time, just like that, cracking stuff. Not too bad, not too bad. Pretty decent run, that one. But yeah, just going to quickly mention, so the championship mode in this game, there's 3 difficulties. So there's a novice, a standard, and an expert difficulty. If you want the full 1998 touring car season played authentically, and it's the only way really to play it, is you have to play the championship on expert. So the expert covers 26 rounds. I said 24 before, but it's 26. Like I said, you do 2 races per race meeting. Like I said, a sprint race and a feature race all together. And that's how you play the full 26 round. The standard is, I think it's 18 rounds out of the 26. And if you play on novice, you do the first 6 race meetings of the season. And yeah, that's... So, funnily enough as well, the novice championship has a speedrun for it that I did. And I think the time that it took me was 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes. Because believe it or not, you can actually skip races and still win the championship. Although, I think it's quite luck dependent. Because I won 3 rounds and won the title, but I've also won 4 rounds and not won the title, so I think it is kind of luck based. But yeah, that is Toca 2 touring cars. That's the novice category for the challenge mode. There is a standard category and an expert category. Standard and expert have more tracks in them and a lot more difficult. There is actually a run that you could potentially do if you were to do it, which is you could do like a challenge speed run as a whole, which would involve novice, standard, and expert. I would imagine that'd take you about probably around an hour, near an hour, there or thereabouts. But yeah, that's Toca 2 touring cars, the novice challenge. Didn't do too bad in the end. I think we got 4th place on the leaderboard, so good stuff. But yeah, that's going to be all from this game, and if it's alright, I'm going to throw it back to the host, and yeah, we'll be back very, very shortly for the next game, which is Driver 2.
Alright, sounds good. Well, everyone, this is the SpeedGaming Spring Marathon benefiting No Kid Hungry. All donations go directly to the charity whose mission is to end childhood hunger. You can get the donation link by going to speedgaming.org/nokidhungry or typing !NKH in the chat. I do have 2 donation comments to read. 2 donations to read. We have a $10 donation from Anonymous and a $5 donation from Syria.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
I should also mention one. We did have, I don't know if we mentioned this, we have the $79.77